Let's talk about why you can't take your own advice. In the 10th century BC, a young king was called upon to settle a seemingly impossible dispute. Two women stood before him with a single child, both claiming to be its rightful mother. There were no witnesses, no evidence on which to base a judgment. After hearing their case, the young king spoke. He said, quote, "Get me a sword, cut the living child in two, and give half to the one and half to the other." End quote. At this, only one of the women cried out for the king to stop. Quote, "Pardon me, my lord, give her the living child, and by no means kill him." Hearing the plea, the young king had all the evidence he needed. Quote, "Give this woman the living child, and by no means kill him. She is the mother." End quote. He knew that only the real mother would cry out in agony at the thought of the baby being harmed. The young king was named King Solomon, and this story, told in the Old Testament, 1 Kings 3, gave birth to a legend. King Solomon was known all the world around for his wisdom. In fact, the wisdom was said to be bestowed by God himself. In a dream, God appeared and granted him a single request. Rather than ask for wealth, health, power, or victory over his enemies, King Solomon replied, quote, "Give me an understanding heart so that I can govern your people well and know the difference between right and wrong." End quote. Very noble. That request was granted, and King Solomon's reputation as the wisest man who ever lived was born. But unfortunately, that legendary wisdom and discernment regarding the affairs of others did not extend to his own life. King Solomon had 700 wives, 300 concubines, a growing obsession with wealth, and a kingdom that collapsed within a generation of his death. In short, King Solomon was great at giving advice, but bad at taking his own. And to be fair, he was not alone. Solomon's paradox. As it turns out, this is a science-backed human phenomenon. In 2014, a group of researchers at the University of Waterloo ran a series of experiments in which participants were asked to reflect on a conflict in their own romantic relationship or a conflict in someone else's romantic relationship. Participants were evaluated on markers of, quote, wise reasoning, which included intellectual humility, perspective taking, considering uncertainty, and searching for compromise. The psychologists wanted to answer a single question. Are people wiser when reflecting on other people's problems compared with their own? The answer was a resounding yes. When it was someone else's conflict, participants were balanced, reflective, and nuanced. When it was their own, they showed more bias, less humility, more defensiveness, and less capacity to consider alternative viewpoints. Pointing back to the story of King Solomon, the researchers named their finding Solomon's paradox, the tendency to reason more wisely about others' problems than our own. Ever wonder why you're able to provide clear, rational advice to others, but struggle to provide that same quality to yourself? You are a victim of Solomon's paradox. Here's how to escape it. Step 1. Practice self-distancing. The primary driver of Solomon's paradox is proximity. You're too close to your problems. Your emotional connection to a situation clouds your better judgment. You try to protect your own ego, but it makes you irrational, biased, defensive. Self-distancing is the practice of creating space from the situation. I think of self-distancing in two broad categories. One, psychological, creating psychological separation from a situation. And two, physical, creating physical separation from the situation. Psychological self-distancing can include third-person self-talk. Refer to yourself by name. What should Sahil do rather than what should I do, for example? Forced zoom out. Imagine yourself in the future, looking back on the present. Slow meditative breathing. A few slow, deep breaths can pull you back to center. Physical self-distancing can include a change of scenery, get out of the physical space where the situation is happening, or active rest. Go for a short walk or drive to shift your perspective and clear your head. Self-distancing is shown to reduce emotional connection to a situation, lower the threat to your ego, expand your cognitive flexibility, and increase integrative thinking. Once you've created that space, you can move to the next step. Step 2, have a self-coaching session. Imagine you had immediate access to a world-class coach with a perfect, deep understanding of your life and context. Well, it turns out you do. That's you. You are that world-class coach. So have a coaching session with yourself. I personally like to use email. I create an email chain with myself, but really any tool would work. You could do it in a journal, on your phone, whatever might work. Pretend you're that third-party coach and look at your current situation or struggle from that new vantage point that you can create. To give you a deeper view of what this actually might look like, I shared in the newsletter version a conversation that I actually had, one such coaching conversation that I had with myself when I was wrestling with imposter syndrome surrounding my 2025 book launch. There were a few key lines in that. If you go and look at the image, you don't really need to go and look at it. But if you do, there are a few key lines that I'd like to flag that really helped. First, one of my responses from the self-coach was, let's deconstruct this a bit. What specifically is causing the fear? This forced me to articulate the fear, to break it down into real component parts to understand its roots. Another line. Most importantly, it means you care. It means you're doing something meaningful to you. This was a reminder to me that the fear was grounded in something positive. It reframed the fear that I was experiencing in a different light that I hadn't really been able to connect to because of that proximity. And finally, the third line. Look back on your life and remember that every single transformation you've gone through has come on the other side of a brief, intense confrontation with the exact feeling you're currently experiencing. This was a reminder to me in the present that my track record for getting through this type of feeling is good, and that the transformation always follows. If you're going to do one of these coaching sessions, here are a few prompts that can really help. 1, deconstruct. Ask yourself to deconstruct the fear or feeling. 2, zoom out. Ask yourself to zoom out and see the bigger picture. And 3, question assumptions. Ask yourself whether the stories and assumptions are true or if they're just embedded from perpetual use. A coaching session with yourself may sound crazy, but trust me, it can really be effective and work. King Solomon had the wisdom to solve everyone's problems but his own. Unfortunately, this wasn't an isolated issue, but a human one. Most of us are the same. We see our friends' situations with perfect clarity, but our own through a fog of emotion, ego, and fear. But here's the real truth. The wisdom you offer others is inside you. You just need to create the space to access and act upon it in your own life. So, maybe escaping Solomon's paradox is as simple as this. The next time you face a struggle, don't ask, what should I do? Ask, what would I tell my best friend to do? Then take your own advice. You already have the answers. You just haven't asked the right questions yet. That's all for today's piece. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, and I hope you'll share it with others. If you did enjoy this, you're going to love my first book, The 5 Types of Wealth. It's a New York Times bestseller, and you can order it now on Amazon or anywhere books are sold. As always, until next time, stay curious, friends.